Hello everyone, we're on chapter 2, Transforming Through Altruism. The qualities of bodhicitta, the altruistic intention. The 8 verses on transforming the mind by Geshe Langri Thangapa is a teaching on the practice of bodhicitta. Sorry, I can't pronounce these words very well. The altruistic invention to attain full enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Before we go into these verses in detail, let us try and understand what we mean by bodhicitta. The definition of bodhicitta is given to Maitreya's Ornament of Realization, where he states that there are 2 aspects to altruism. The first is the condition that produces the altruistic outlook. This involves the compassion that a person must develop towards all sentient beings, and the aspiration he or she must cultivate to bring about the welfare of all sentient beings. This leads to the second aspect, which is the wish to attain enlightenment. It is for the sake of benefiting all beings that this wish should arise in us. We could say that bodhicitta is the highest level of altruism and the highest form of courage, and we could also say that bodhicitta is the outcome of the highest altruistic activity. As Lama Tsongkhapa explains in his great exposition of the path to enlightenment, bodhicitta is such that while one engages in fulfilling the wishes of others, the fulfillment of one's own self-interest comes as a byproduct. This is a wise way of benefiting both oneself and others. In fact, I think bodhicitta is really and truly wonderful. The more I think of helping others, and the stronger my feeling for taking care of others become, the more benefit I reap myself. That is quite extraordinary. Elaborating further on the positive qualities of bodhicitta, we find that it is one of the most effective means of accumulating merit and enhancing our spiritual potential. Furthermore, it is one of the most powerful methods for countering negative tendencies and destructive impulses. Since overcoming negative tendencies and enhancing positive potential are the very essence of the spiritual path, the practice of developing altruism is really the greatest, most effective, and most compelling practice of all. Maitreya also states in one of his aspirational prayers that it is this same bodhicitta that can free us from transmigration into the lower realms of existence, that can lead us to higher and more fortunate rebirths, and that can even lead us to the state beyond aging and death. Maitreya is implying something very special here. Generally, according to the Buddhist teaching, it is the practice of morality and ethical conduct which protects us from rebirth in the lower realms of existence. What Maitreya is saying is that the practice of bodhicitta suppresses all ethical practices and is, in fact, a far superior path. Similarly, he states that bodhicitta is a superior path when it comes to planting the seeds for attaining higher forms of rebirth. So in a sense, we could say that the practice of generating and cultivating the altruistic intention is so comprehensive that it contains the essential elements of all other spiritual practices. Taken alone, it can therefore replace the practice of many different techniques. Since all other methods are distilled into one approach, this is why we consider that bodhicitta practice lies at the root of both temporary and lasting happiness. If you look at the precepts that are taken by a practitioner of bodhicitta, you will see the tremendous courage that underlies this practice. In his precious garland, Nagarjuna writes, "May I always be an object of enjoyment for all sentient beings according to their wish, and without interference, as are the earth, water, fire, wind, medicine, and forests. May I be as dear to sentient beings as their own life, and may they be very dear to me. May their sins fructify for me, and all my virtues for them." It is clear that a tremendous amount of courage is reflecting in these sentiments. The courage of such expansive, altruistic thinking reaches out to all beings without exception. It is not confined to any particular time. It is completely unlimited. In a verse of his guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, Shantideva also expresses this tremendous courage, which transcends all boundaries of space and time. He writes, "As long as space endures, and as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain, and dispel the miseries of the world." When the altruistic intention is supported by insight into emptiness, and particularly by the direct realization of emptiness, one is said to have attained the two dimensions of bodhicitta, which are known as conventional and ultimate bodhicitta. With both these practices of compassion and wisdom, the practitioner has within his or her hands the complete method for attaining the highest spiritual goal. Such a person is truly great and worthy of admiration. If one is able to cultivate these spiritual qualities within oneself, then, as Chandrakirti writes very poetically in his entry to the Middle Way, with one wing of altruistic intention and another wing of insight into emptiness, one can traverse the whole of space and soar beyond the state of existence to the shores of fully enlightened Buddhahood. Although I have some experience of these two dimensions of bodhicitta, I feel that I have very little realization of them. Nevertheless, I have a real desire and enthusiasm to practice, and that itself inspires me immensely. As I have mentioned on my occasions, I believe that we are all fundamentally the same and have the same basic potential. Some of you, I have no doubt, have a much better brain than mine. You should therefore make an effort to contemplate, study, and meditate, but without any short-sighted expectations. You should have the same attitude as Shantideva, that as long as space exists, you will remain to dispel suffering in the world. When you have that kind of determination and courage to develop your capacity, then 100 years, an eon, 1,000,000 years are nothing to you. Furthermore, you will not consider that the different human problems we have here and there are in any way insurmountable. Such an attitude and vision bring some kind of real inner strength. You might think that it is a delusion to think in this way, but even if it is, that doesn't matter. I find it helpful. Now the question is, we can train ourselves to develop bodhicitta, the two aspects of bodhicitta that we spoke about earlier, the aspiration to be of help to others and the aspiration to attain enlightenment oneself, have to be cultivated separately through separate training. The aspiration to be of help to others has to be cultivated first. The wish to bring about the welfare of others can, of course, include revealing them from their very obvious suffering and physical pain. But this is not what is meant in this context. Bringing about others' welfare really means helping them attain liberation. We must therefore begin with an understanding of what is meant by liberation. This relates back directly to what I described earlier, namely the understanding of emptiness, because nirvana, as defined by the Buddhist teachings, has to be understood in terms of emptiness. So according to Buddhism, without some understanding of emptiness, It is not really possible to understand what true liberation is, and without that, a strong aspiration to attain liberation will not arise. The second aspiration to attain full enlightenment is also directly related with one's understanding of emptiness. The Tibetan word for enlightenment is Chang Chub, and the Sanskrit is Bodhi, Bodhi. Looking at the etymology of the two Tibetan syllables, Chang means purification or purified, and this refers to a quality of the fully enlightened Buddha, indicating that all negative characteristics and mental pollutions have been overcome. The second syllable, Chub, literally means having realized, and this refers to the Buddha's quality of having perfected all knowledge and realization. So enlightenment, as expressed in the Tibetan term Chang Chub, suggests both overcoming our negative qualities and perfecting our positive ones. This is directly connected to one's understanding of emptiness, for it implies that one realizes that it is impossible to eliminate the negative aspects of the mind, and it assumes some degree of understanding of how this can be done and of what the nature of total freedom is. Thank you. Until the next one.